Estamos de volta com o segundo bloco de O Produtor Quer Saber e hoje eu estou conversando com o professor de agronomia da Universidade do Estado de Kansas, nos Estados Unidos da América, Charles Rice. Agora nós vamos retomar o nosso assunto a respeito de como mitigar as mudanças climáticas na agricultura, como fazer os efeitos diminuírem para os produtores. Charles, what's the experience of technology in agriculture that you have in USA and you are going to bring us this technology?
Okay, sure. So the technology that's available in the U.S., I mentioned the soil moisture sensors, particularly under irrigated agriculture. A lot of farmers in water limited areas are using those soil moisture sensors to determine how much irrigation water to put on. The other one that is being widely adopted is the use of nitrogen sensors. And that can either be in the soil, that's still under development, but more importantly, there's aerial sensors to monitor the nitrogen content of that crop. Wheat, cotton, corn in particular are crops that these sensors are being used. And so you can, different levels, you can do handheld sensors where you can walk through the field and measure the greenness of the crop, and the greener it is, the more nitrogen it already has. If it's less green, it means it needs more nitrogen. And so you can do that by handheld, but now with some of the tractors, they're mounted with these sensors, so you can drive through the field. And in fact, both in the U.S. and in Brazil, these tractor-mounted nitrogen sensors can be put on nitrogen applicators. So as they are driving through the field, they determine how much nitrogen is needed in each small section. And then behind is the nitrogen applicator, so it can change the nitrogen application on the go. That's kind of really some neat technology. Both that's being applied in the U.S. and then I've seen it here at least in southern Brazil. And then as we move up to higher levels, there's drone technology. I don't know if that's available yet here in Brazil, but drones are being, I know farmers that bought drones for large acreage just for their own use, and they can fly over the field 24 hours. And so they can start to remote sense when a crop needs nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, if it needs a pesticide, if there's a pest outbreak, instead of applying for the whole field, they can more precisely apply those chemicals. Of course, that means less inputs, that increases efficiency, cost for the producer, but it's also good for the environment because you're not spraying inputs through the whole field. And then finally, there's technologies, NASA in the US has put up satellites, the French and India as well, Brazil, have put up satellites that they can, over large areas now, look at cropping patterns. And so again, that adds to the information that helps researchers, but farmers and consultants for farmers to better manage their inputs.
Perfect. You said the conditions of agriculture in the United States, but here in Brazil, visiting some farmers and watching some cases, what do you think about our agriculture? Do we have to use more technology as United States, or we are in the same level?
Well, I mean, both U.S. and Brazil can use more technology. There are some farmers that have adopted this technology. My experience is in Rio Grande do Sul, primarily. And so there are farmers that are already using some of those technologies, but it's not widespread. But that's somewhat true in the U.S. It's probably more available in the U.S. And part of it is the type of information, the amount of information. I think we, in the U.S., has more complete coverage of information across the U.S. compared to Brazil. But I think it's growing, and hopefully technologies will grow in Brazil.
Charles, you won the Nobel Prize in 2007, and the subject was related how the agriculture can mitigate the climate changing, and what's the answer? How the agriculture can do it?
Sure. So this was part of what's called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It was a large number of scientists that shared that award, so I was one of several hundred. But it was the Nobel Peace Prize associated with looking at climate change and then how agriculture can help mitigate climate change. And so it was really a benefit for agriculture in the sense of, okay, for carbon, how do agriculture with no-till, other practices, take carbon dioxide and store it into soil organic carbon. That stabilizes that carbon, and it turns out it makes that soil better. More carbon, more organic matter in the soil makes that soil more productive. So it's really a win-win situation. And then we also looked at other ways that agriculture can help mitigate, so reducing N2O emissions, nitrous oxide emissions. And primarily that's through reducing or becoming more efficient with nitrogen fertilizer. So again, if we become more efficient with fertilizer, that reduces the cost to the farmer, so it has a benefit to the farmer as well as to the environment. And then the third major greenhouse gas is methane. That one is more challenging for our agriculture because methane is created by flooded rice conditions, and also a fair amount of it is coming from livestock, cattle in particular, dairy and beef cattle. So the technologies that are available for reducing methane in animals is not here yet. And so that's something that's going to have to come for agriculture, come down the road, 30, 50 years from now. But things like no-till, fertilizer efficiency, those are things we can do now. And so that's the message was agriculture is affected by climate change, but it can help be a solution, at least a short-term solution to climate change.
Perfect. The last one, Professor. I would ask you to give an advice to the farmers about the importance of use of technology in agriculture.
Okay.
What's the advice?
Okay. Well, I think to become more profitable, to handle the weather variability, I think technology is going to be part of the solution. It's going to make farmers more profit, more efficient, and lower their risk because when we have these extreme events, risk is going to go up. And so for Brazil in particular, it's important to invest in infrastructure, cell phone technology, the internet, and improved weather collecting data sites across the country of Brazil.
Perfect. Mr. Charles Rice, thank you very much for your interview with us, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
It's good to be here.